Welcome back to that build. And today I'm going to attempt driving this thing which just shut off by itself. It's been a while, quite a while. If you're new to the channel, this is my Porsche 911 Turbo 964 Replica. It's based off a 71 Beetle chassis, and over the span of 3 years now, I've been slowly rebuilding it, completely tearing it down to its bare prime, and getting it to a state now where it's as a buggy. So everything is attached that needs to be attached in order to have this thing driving. It's the bare essentials, but it works. So we have the clutch master cylinder is, brake master cylinder, yeah, it's early. That's finally arrived, that's in place now. Brakes function, spongy, but they work. Clutch has a lot of trouble, the pedal doesn't want to sit where it's supposed to sit anymore, so I don't know, might need to do a bit further adjustment on that one. Steering does operate. I need to replace a tyre on this side which was damaged when I actually bought them way back when. Did buy a replacement for the wrong side, so got to reorder. Engine, really not happy though. Worse, funnily enough, than when I actually started it way back when, after it had been sitting for ages. All I've done since was replace the spark plugs and clean out the gunge within the valve cover heads. So I don't know where things have gone absolutely awry, but the engine is running worse now than it was beforehand. I don't know, but it's not the engine I'm going to invest a whole heap of time and money into. That is simply to get me across the line, but being that it's in such a poor state now and leaking more, I don't really know what to do. So that's train of thought for down the track. But I'm going to get this outside very soon into the car park, have a bit of a test drive, just see if everything functions, brakes, clutch difference, all that sort of affair, throttle, see if I can open the engine up and blow it up, most likely. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll get underway of fitting all the parts that are remaining and then go for a test drive. So, the fun theory is that this seating position, getting the seat in, this is only a temporary seat. It's not what I'm going to be ending with. It's not working at all. If I kind of sit like this, I've got plenty of room. I can turn the steering wheel, etc. and so on. Height, I can actually see over the steering wheel quite well. Gauges are probably nicely in view there. It is a nice position. My hand is right next to the steering wheel for the shifter, so I really do like that. Park brake, of course, right alongside. I'm sitting really low, like extremely low, but it is still quite a ways up from the ground. Of course, I haven't changed the Bug chassis at all. It's standard suspension height, maybe a little higher in the back. But the biggest problem I have, and I really don't know how I'm going to fix this, is the pedal factor. My feet, my legs, everything about it really isn't working. And of course, this seat isn't helping any, but even then, there's a problem with the shifter. So if I use the accelerator, everything's hunky-dory. If I go from the accelerator to the brake, it is a lot of travel, and my knee is now fouling on the bottom of the steering wheel. So I've basically got to go sideways to use the brakes, but then my left foot's in the way, foot clutch, there we go, to get that engaged to then shift, obviously. So this really isn't working, and I don't know how to fix it, apart from having a tiny little steering wheel, which, you know, isn't going to happen either, but just need to get in the shed now. Well, despite not being able to get out of first gear and having to ride the clutch the entire time, because as soon as I let the clutch all the way out, the engine would just stall, that was a lot of fun. I forgot even the camera was there until the very, very end, because I was just so fixated on keeping the revs going, the gear shift, the clutch, all that sort of thing. And I just completely spaced out. I was just focused on the task of actually trying to drive this thing. It drove well. I mean, you know, it's first gear, so I'm not going to really get anything spectacular. I've got no speedometer. Unfortunately, the annoying thing is I have to keep getting out to the back of the car to keep turning it on. It would have been ideal to just restart here on the fly, but you know, whatever. But that was really a fun little experience, because this car has not driven, geez, well, I've had it for 3 years, and I know its history from about the early 2010s. So at least a decade of sitting around. So yeah, the engine is not happy, leaking. There's little drips here and there. I'm sure there's some out in the car park too. But yeah, that was, at least now I've actually been able to drive this thing, and I've made a massive, you know, I don't know what to say. It's, to get to this point in time is really, for me, quite an achievement, because this car I've completely built from scratch. If you don't know, this is the very first car I've completely torn down, rebuilt from the ground up, learning skills I've never done before, welding, etc., and so on. So for me, this is, I'm really happy with this outcome, despite the engine. I mean, it would have been ideal if the engine was running a bit better. I didn't expect it to be spectacular, but if I could have got out of first gear, that would have been great. If I could have let the clutch all the way out, that would have been great too. But that was, yeah, that was a lot of fun. So that's pretty much the chassis done now. The chassis is done. The engine, for all intents and purposes, I really don't know what to do there, to be honest, because I need a running engine to get this thing complied. I don't want to spend a lot of money on that engine. I do have another engine at the moment, which is literally in bits and pieces. I've never built an engine before. So that's the next thing. Next thing after the body, I should say. The body is next. So the shell will be going back on here now, and then starting to sort all that out. I do have to kind of figure out what to do with this front little fork section, because it is completely skew-if. For now, I'm going to be using that just to balance on this front section. I will be adding some more reinforcements, a bit more bracing, etc., just for my peace of mind, because all it relied on before was that resting on those. I had nothing to bolt it down, nothing at all. It was just literally fiberglass and the shape of the fiberglass holding that nose in situ. So you can imagine what that thing would be like at really good speed. It'd be kind of flexing a little bit, but also too, if there was an impact, for argument's sake, frontal nose impact, that thing would just go to nothing, and I'd be right at the, what do you call that, the steering linkage, the suspension, I don't know, that whole front section piece itself. So yeah, that's more or less where I'm at now, is finally onto the bodywork, which I've never done fiberglassing before. Did I mention that one? Fun. So, I don't know if the episode's going to be still as consistent. Long story short, if you're still here listening to me ramble on as always, there's still a lot going on in my life. Family still takes priority, and family, unfortunately, been a real big priority this last 7-8 months, whatever it is, which is why everything's been so scattered. I've not done any episodes at all. I've not done anything, despite a lot of things in my life changing. So I've got a new daily. The Abarth is actually going. Long story on that one, but the Abarth is going. And the long short of it is I'm still destined to be out of this place, and I know that was the lead up for last year. I've got a year now. So this time next year, literally end of June next year, is now my new cutoff. It keeps kind of extending. I can't really go into detail why, but the long story is I've got a year now to basically try and get the shell onto here secured, so that at least for argument's sake, if I need to pack up and leave, then I can move everything around quite easily. So, you know, loose parts can go in the cab. So long as the body itself is physically back on the chassis, it's all in one piece, I can move it around. Engine will have to sort later. Again, I just need to get as much in one lump so that I don't have to worry about going back and forth with the trailer and stuff like that, you know, picking up the pieces more or less, and especially with big pieces like an entire motor for argument's sake, dealing with that. Again, that could go in a trailer quite easily, but whatever. So, yeah, thank you for the patience if you have stuck around waiting for the episodes, and I'll throw one more thing in there. There was a post, if you saw it, of me contemplating selling this thing. That's how bad things got for me at one point, not financially speaking, but mentally. I was completely burnt out of everything, really badly. So after a lot of thought and after basically no interest, more or less, because it's, yeah, have a look at it. Yeah, I'm keeping this car. I'm persisting with building the rest of it. Again, this is a car I absolutely love. I love bugs. I love Porsches. It's hybrid. I'm going to make my own car, basically. And yeah, I'm rambling on. It's been a lot going on. So thank you very, very much for tuning in, and thank you for all the new subscribers I've had since I stopped posting videos. Yeah, hopefully you enjoy them, and hopefully this gives you a nice little update. There will be more episodes to come, obviously. The body's next, so please stick around. Until next time, guys, as always, like, subscribe, comment below, etc. This has been Dat Build. Now, get back to your build. Until next time, guys, cheers.